Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Stash Chats. As always, thank you so much for joining us live. Do join in with the chat. Let us know who you are and where you're joining from. And I'm going to be talking to Alexandra from the Digital Pattern Library tonight. So if you've got any questions for her, do drop those in the box and I'll weave them into our conversation tonight. I've also got a couple of announcements before we get started and whilst we're waiting for people to join. So the first one is for our UK viewers. If you are interested in applying for the sewing bee, but you missed the deadline, it has now been extended to the 24th of May. So yeah, that's really exciting. We'd love to see some of you guys on the bee. So do get your applications in if you're keen for that. And the other announcement is that there won't be an episode of Stash Chats on next week because Doug and I are taking a week off. It will be the first break we've had since starting the business, being completely offline. So that will be a bit crazy, but don't worry if you need any help with Stash Hub. We've got loads of tutorials. So there's lots right here on YouTube. And also there's a tutorial section on the Stash Hub website as well. And you can also join our Facebook group called Stash Hub Club, and there's loads of really knowledgeable people in the group as well that will be able to help you. But that's the announcements out the way, so let's crack on with the episode. Thank you for joining, and yeah, do join in with the chat. It makes it really exciting to then you get all your questions answered as well. So let's bring Alexandra in now and find out a bit more about her and her sewing journey. Hello, welcome to Stash Chat.
Thanks for having me. That little introduction announcement, number one, well-deserved holiday. Number two, I'm always really embarrassed to admit I've never watched The Sewing Bee, ever. How terrible is that? So terrible.
People mention it to you and you're just like...
Yeah, literally. They're like, you need to see it, you need to watch it. And I don't own a TV. So I think that's a little bit of a hiccup in my journey there. But yeah, but you're convincing me, Yvette. You're convincing me.
I get really into it. I feel like in the first week, you're like, it's not as good as the last season. But then by week 3, you're really invested in all the people and their characters. And you're like, oh, this person's definitely going to make something with massive sleeves this week. Let's see what they've got this week.
I always find with things like that, because obviously I've watched Project Runway, but by the end you obviously know their style, you can see their kind of handwriting as a designer. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I should probably watch it because I love that kind of stuff.
Because one of the challenges in the middle is judged blind. So they get given all this random crap and they have to make an outfit out of it. So sometimes it's like washing up sponges and dishcloths and they have to make a dress or something. And it's judged blind, but then as it goes on, some of the things you're like, oh, this is really obviously this person, they're gonna know.
How many series is it now?
This is a 10th one that's just about to come on. It starts next week.
That is a fair shift, isn't it? Is it like The Apprentice, where the first few series were real business people, and then towards the end it's reality TV? I mean, making stuff out of sponges feels like a bit of a, really pushing the limits there.
It definitely has changed over all the series. Series 1, I mean, if you're watching live, do let us know your thoughts in the comments. But series 1 was very twee and sort of calm, and they had really simple things that they had to do, like add a patch pocket to an already made skirt. And now it's I don't know. So I spoke to Asma in a previous episode, and she was in the final of last year's Sewing Bee, and they had to make a transforming dress. So it's
simple.
One dress, and then you can't see anything of the other dress, and then it's something else, and it's just amateur sewists expect to do the stuff but I think the whole idea is that the show gives you opportunities to do stuff that you've never done before.
Of course.
Yeah, I've spoken to about, I think it was 9 previous contestants that have been on the Sewing Bee. Yeah, so they will really love it. So yeah, if you're not sure about it, definitely apply because it's really fun.
I feel like you've convinced me that I'm going to have to binge watch that. I love binge watching stuff when I'm designing or whatever, Love it. Okay, perfect.
Hi Mel, thanks for joining us tonight. Right, Alex, do you want to just start with a little introduction to yourself?
Yes, I will try and keep it brief. And also, if my Welsh accent gets way too strong, let me know. I'll slow down and speak a bit more eloquently. But yeah, I'm Alexandra. I've been a fashion designer since the dawn of time. I've not really done anything else with my career. Although recently I have taken on part-time marketing managing role, but we won't get into that. That's just a sign of the times. So yes, I studied in London, or just south of London in Epsom. And I was formally trained in luxury women's wear. And I didn't even know you could do more than fashion design until I got to uni. So like, I don't know if I would have chosen journalism or promotion and imaging, but from my tiny little Welsh town, they didn't really expand our horizons that much. So I always just thought if I wanted to work in fashion, I had to be a designer. And by the time I got so far down the journey, it's bloody, can I swear? I'm so sorry, I have a potty mouth, but it's a bloody expensive course to take. You know, I mean, for me it was £3,000 a year, but isn't now university £9,000 a year, something like that? Plus materials, plus hiring a model. My final collection, I had to buy 6 pairs of size 7 shoes. Like, tell me that's not a hard resale. So like, it was just a really expensive experience. And honestly, if I'm just being totally transparent with you, I'm too stubborn to do anything else. Like, just the thought of investing that much. So left university, joined the industry, and that was an absolute slap in the face. More so with its ethics and with like questionable sustainability, and just I like hit the ground running. I quite quickly went into a role where I was managing a London-based studio. I had a team of interns. I liaised with the office in Bali. I honestly, people don't believe me when I say this, I remember putting my makeup on in the shower because I was working 16-hour days at this company. And it's sink or swim. And I've always said, and I'm sure, not having experienced it, but I'm sure there are similarities with like New York, Milan, you know, all of this. You either have the time to enjoy a consuming city like London, but you don't have the money, or you have the money, but you don't have the time because you're literally just hustling. And that's how I felt anyway.
So you're like, sink or swim, and I'm swimming and I'm putting on my makeup at the same time for 2 minutes.
Drowning in the shower, waterproof eyeliner not working. Yeah, mate, honestly, it was grim. And like, you know, I'm the wrong side of 30 now. And I don't think, had I done that at any other time than my early 20s, I just don't know how I could have had the energy to. Even now, I'm like, oh God, I'm tired talking about it. So yes, then I had to kind of make a decision really, what path I wanted to go down. Did I want to kind of stick at it and just face a career of burnout? Or did I want to come back home to Wales with the tiny bit of money I had left in my back pocket and kind of do my own thing? And so I obviously chose the latter. I then met a rather handsome, don't tell him I said that, farmer. Fell in love, moved on a mountain, and carved my own career into the fashion landscape. So yeah, now I have 2 fashion-focused businesses, which is Digital Pattern Library, where I help hobby sewists. I literally teach the skills to render myself useless. That's how I describe it, because I'm like, you know, give it away, give it to other people. I think I realized how privileged I've been. Like, I hate speaking about class systems, but you know, in layman's terms, I'm a middle class white woman who went through an expensive degree, who did the unpaid internships, and not everybody gets that opportunity. So that's not wasted on me, which is why here at Digital Pattern Library, I do try and pass that on in a really affordable way. And then my other business, Alexandra Design, helps people without the experience, but with a little bit of investment behind them to launch their own fashion brands. And so I connect them to factories, I create tech packs, I design collections for them. So it's really nice. I've almost got like a business to business side, and then I've got a business to customer side. And the business to customer side just makes me warm and fuzzy. Like, I love the sewing community. I love the creative community. And it's been such a pleasure to like have these conversations, like this opportunity now. Like I was jumped at the chance when you invited me. So yeah, and even the sewing community has taught me so much. You think you know a lot when you leave fashion industry, you hit the sewing community and I've been learning all sorts.
I mean, there's such a wealth of knowledge as well, isn't there? Like some of the people I've spoken to have been sewing like their whole lives. Like they, you know, they're inspired by their parents and their grandparents, and
Yeah,
like, you know, they've just picked up so much stuff along the way. It's amazing.
100%. And I think you'll always find that with creativity anyway. If you feel like you've learned everything, then I don't think that aligns with being creative, because it's experimenting, it's being playful, it's being curious, it's reinventing the wheel. I mean, my job is to look at a blank canvas and create something original. So yeah, if anyone out there says, "Oh yeah, I know it all," I wouldn't trust that. I wouldn't trust that.
Yeah, and also I think as well, like with the sewing community where everyone's so passionate about it, everyone's
Mhm.
like excited to share and
Mhm.
engage with each other as well. It's a really nice environment to be in.
Yeah, definitely. And like I always say, and I say, oh, in digital pattern library, but it is wider. It is the sewing community. It does feel like a nice, safe online space, and you can share your bugger ups. I'm going to try really hard to curb my curb my potty mouth, but you can share your bugger ups. You can share all the mistakes without feeling like, that I would love actually to know in the comments, if people can comment this, like just say yes or whatever. Do you suffer with perfectionism? Because I have a theory that creative people across the board do. Because I think like you sew something, and even now, like I'm way into over a decade of experience, I'll sew something up and I know that that little bit wonky, or I could have done that hand finish a little bit better. And that originally stopped me from sharing it, or stopped me from, especially when I teach people. I think when I started, I felt like I have to put out, like, everything's got to be good and perfect, and I'm teaching people this. But like in the sewing community, it's the mistakes and it's the bugger ups and it's the, oh, this didn't go as planned. The seam ripper, I'm sorry to break it to anybody, will forever be a friend.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
going anywhere.
yeah, I love the seam ripper. And also
Yeah.
I feel like the seam ripper gives you a second chance. Like,
Oh,
you don't have to worry about
chance.
it because the seam ripper's got your back.
Literally. I mean, you can like get them in all different colours. It's great. Just, great to add to your kit.
We've got a lot of agreement in the chat from Kerry and HM and Mel. They all say, yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kerry says, if anyone admires anything, I immediately say, oh, there's a lot of mistakes, which is it's just a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? But we need to stop doing that. We need to be like, yes,
yeah,
I'm amazing.
Own it. And like, there's something I encourage my members to do, or like anyone to do. You don't need to spend money anywhere. Is keep something called a fashion file. And it's basically like an arch leather file, and any technique you learn, you pop it in there. Just do it on a sample bit of fabric. There's a lot of power to be had in processing techniques in your own language, in your own way. So even if yourself or me, like I've seen your wonderful videos on how to use Stash Hub and everything, which are bloody useful. Someone might watch that and then process it in their own way. Like how you learn is very unique. And so if you keep a fashion file and annotate it in your own language, it's really powerful learning tool. But my point is, I've got over 4 stuffed to the brim from a student up until now. And again, as we've just said, I'm constantly learning from my members and vice versa. And I can look back, like when I was a student, and how far my skills have come. And that really helps when you're like, oh no, but this is wrong and this is wonky. Like you can look back and literally have a comparison between your skills and be like, do you know what? I'm actually killing it. I think a lot of people still call themselves beginners in the sewing space when like they've been at it for 2-3 years. Mate, you're not a beginner. You're not a beginner.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, it makes it like confusing for like labeling of patterns, because the pattern companies don't want to put like advanced or expert on anything, because they're like, well, no one's going to buy this because nobody thinks that they're an expert. So then you get weird categories of like absolute beginner, confident beginner, You know, kidding myself, a beginner.
Tea drinking
Intermediate.
beginner, coffee drinking beginner. Yeah, it gets really complex.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the fashion file is actually a really nice idea as well. I've seen a few like reels of like historical ones as well, where
Mm.
you know, where they sew the tiny little dresses just to like practice the techniques, and they're really cute. But yeah, I never thought of the idea of having your own one to look back at your own sewing history. That's a really cool
Oh,
idea.
for sure, definitely. And I think it also helps you take the pressure off your shoulders. I'm still working on this, so I'm not getting on my high horse. Yeah, literally do as I say, not as I do. On not having to sew a final garment. I feel like the weekend comes round and we're like, right, what am I going to make? Like, I have to do a dress. Oh, I've got this coming up. I have to do this. It's like, no, like literally cut out an A4 bit of fabric or letter size, or wherever you are in the world, and practice putting in a concealed zip. Like, just don't feel like you have to constantly make final garments. Try and approach a creative practice from different angles to like enjoy it and take the pressure off.
That's a really good tip. And especially with buttonholes as well. I feel like everyone's got the fear on buttonholes, but they're also like one of the last things you do. So you could have spent like weeks making a dress, and then you're like, right, first ever buttonhole I've made. Let's go. Oh no.
One of
So
the
yeah,
first
definitely worth practicing.
One of the first garments I ever made, and I still wear it today, was a shirt, and it doesn't have any cuffs on it. It's not hemmed. There's no buttonholes, but all I do is wear it as a styling piece and tie it around my waist. And like, because of that, I had the fear, and then I got bored, and shiny object syndrome probably came in, and I was like, oh, next. But yeah, I still wear it. I still tie it around my waist.
Amazing. So when did you learn to sew on your fashion course, or did you already know how to sew before then?
Yeah, so I was so worried about this because I feel like I'll be a terrible guest, but I have never been the kind of person to like be fashion obsessed or to thumb through Vogue. Like that's never really been my jam, but I have always been creative. So I did look at doing choreography. You know, I was always sketching animals, and I just ended up landing on fashion. And my mum, who I'm sure we'll touch upon later because she's a big inspiration for me, unfortunately had MS when I was growing up. So we had carers, or she had carers, although they probably did care for all of us. Crazy family. And one of them worked in an upholstery factory. So she had a lot of sewing experience. And when I was, dabbling around, fingers in all the pies, deciding what creative route I wanted to take, top tip, guys, take them all. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself. She taught me how to sew, and I made the first thing I ever made. I must have been about 13. Was a bloody tailored jacket. I know, but that's the beauty of naivety, isn't it? That's the like
Beginner
ignorance.
confidence unparalleled.
Yeah, literally, and I think it turned out all right. I'm sure she was called Linda. I'm sure Linda helped me quite a bit with it. But yeah, I just think back to it, and even then, I wanted to make a jacket inspired by my favorite childhood book. So I always had this kind of concept connection. But as I say, I wasn't like, I've never really been bothered on how I look or how I dress. I'm not your stereotype, but I just love the process.
I'm sure not many 13-year-olds are wearing tailored jackets.
Well, as like odd town I grew up in Wales, I probably blended in just fine. But yeah, I don't know if I wore it. I literally think I just took a photo of it and then like never even bothered wearing it. But that's what I mean. I love the process rather than putting it on my body.
I think that was a really like brave decision for you to go into fashion, because I feel like the way that the fashion industry is like portrayed in things like The Devil Wears Prada and Ugly Betty and that sort of thing, like everyone's so mean. I think I'd be scared.
I've definitely hit the stereotypes, don't get me wrong. I don't know if this is the right use of the word, but I'm going to say ironically. I never know if I use that correctly. It actually did wonders for my body confidence. So I have scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. If you think of my X-ray, it looks like an upside down question mark. Not that I hold a grudge. I should be 5'10". Standing at 5'7", been robbed of my height. So I'm very asymmetric. I'm a proud member of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee. And I've been told by a creative director in the fashion industry, I have the shoulders of a man. So, a nice little cocktail of self-esteem issues going on. But I just felt like making my own clothes to my measurements, understanding how to balance my figure, embracing, where I want to potentially add volume, where I want to detract attention from. Like, it's so empowering. So I actually found that through fashion and the industry, I mean, I'm quite a thick-skinned gal anyway, water off a duck's back, but like, I've been on such a journey with it. And actually the sewing community has really pushed me over the edge of that sewing journey. And I'm sure maybe aging comes with that as well. Like, I'm sure if you look back through the decades, in my 20s and my student days, it was black, it was grey, couldn't be seen in anything else. Now I've done seasonal colour analysis, if you looked into that. Aren't we all obsessed with it? And if you don't know what we're on about, please research it after this call. So now I'm very light spring, light summer, all my pastels. So it's been an interesting journey, and it's definitely, there's bitchy side to fashion, don't get me wrong. I've been in all of those stereotypical situations you can think of. It does take a thick-skinned person, as I say, sink or swim. But yeah, it's also done wonders to just make me feel empowered,
And then all the stuff about like the ethics and the conditions that really put you off, was there any kind of preparation for that in your course, or did it sort of make it seem like it was all amazing and then you leave university and you're like, oh God, it's horrible out here?
Pretty much. So like our course, I did fashion. That was literally it. That was all it was called. It wasn't women's wear fashion. It wasn't like contouring or couture or anything like that. It was just fashion. So it was as broad as it could possibly be. And even 3 years down the line with my own membership, we're doing a weekly workshop. We've still only just scratched the surface of all the things you can learn. So condensing that into a university degree, I appreciate it was scratching the surface. Okay, it would have been predominantly women's wear. That's what I personally went down into. But it wasn't textile design, it wasn't surface design, it wasn't any of that, or accessories. So it was very much clothing. And I remember just being a really grumpy little sod when I joined the industry, because I was like, I've paid £3,000 a year, and again, some people now £9,000 a year, plus all of the expenses we just said. To learn about the industry, to have it's almost like studying to be a doctor. You want to graduate and get a job. Well, obviously the creative industry is high risk. My poor dad, he keeps calling Burberry Blueberry, Tommy Hilfiger, Tommy Finger. So, when I was like, Dad, I'm gonna be a fashion designer, he was like, oh jeez. But I entered the industry, and yeah, it was like, and I entered the industry in luxury brands. I didn't enter in Primark or high street shops. I went into luxury streetwear. I was doing the London fashion shows. I was doing the runways. And just the factories they work with, and like, how is that possible that is the purchase order price? And these kind of questions started coming up for me. And it just made me feel uncomfortable. And it wasn't even just the treatment of these third world countries or sweatshops or what you stereotypically think of. It was the treatment of people in the London office. It was the treatment of myself. It was the 16-hour work days. It was I've been in illegal placements as well, where I worked for 9 months. Oh God, what was I thinking? 9 months and I didn't get a penny. They didn't pay me anything. But as a fresh-faced graduate, I was like, no, it's my foot in the door. They'll replace me like that. This is the kind of toxicity of the fashion industry. So yeah, I saw it all, and I just thought, do you know what? No, just no. And then I moved back to Cardiff, and started my own streetwear brand. And that actually started to garner quite a bit of press and recognition, because what I tried to do was attach something I called a journey card, but it was like a swing ticket, like a clothing tag if you're in a shop, to each of my ready-to-wear garments. And again, I look back and it's the naivety of youth, but I would detail everybody I possibly could that was involved in the creation of that garment. So I would honestly try and find the name of the farmer who grew the crop to create the fiber. Like, I tried to just go so intense on the journey of this garment and how it got from seed to wardrobe. Which was great USP. PR loved that. Press took, picked it up, a few awards for that. But then I started to grow, and then I was like, how on earth do I keep this up on a big scale? Like, it was impossible. And that's actually how Digital Pattern Library was born. Because I thought, you know what? I can't even guarantee that my customers reading that. So like, the amount of effort I was putting into it, I really wanted to reconnect people to their clothing. And I couldn't even guarantee it. So I just thought, I'm going to charge a fast fashion price for the same design, but I'm going to make my customer make it. So I had no interest or no experience of the sewing community. I didn't even really realize it was an industry. It was just this little idea I had. And on my first pattern launch, which was my belted sweater, which is still my most popular pattern today, the amount of sales I had from it, and it just kind of grew from there. And then I just went down the education route, and I found my people. Sewists are engaged. They want to know. They're curious. And I found my people. So yeah, that's how we're here.
Yeah, I think as well, it's really good, knowing what goes into making your clothes. And I think it's very easy to not worry about it if you know nothing about it. Like, I think a lot of people will assume that robots make all the fast fashion clothes.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's all sewn by people. It's all sewn the same as you would sew it at home, but just horrible conditions under really intense pressure. So to have the skills to make it yourself as well, you take that part of the process out, which I think is really important, especially for people that are really worried about ethical production, because there's, like you say, there's so many steps. It's really hard to guarantee it. Even if there's a certification Ecotex or something that only covers a small part of the cotton production or something, you can't guarantee it's all been done properly.
Definitely. And I think when there is a crossover with sewists, it also can feed negatively into sewists. Who likes that term? Just out of interest. So many terms out there. Process, in that this is where the perfectionism almost gets fuel added to the fire, because as consumers, which sewists are, you pick it up from you used to pick it up from a high street shop and put it on. But ultimately what you're doing at home is you are creating a product, just like we do in the industry. And so when you sew something up and it doesn't fit you quite right, I mean, there's a wealth of reasons behind that. If you think high street sizing charts aren't made to fit you, commercial mass scale patterns aren't made to fit you either. It's impossible. Our bodies are so unique. But you might be berating yourself because you sewed it up and you're like, oh, that doesn't fit me right. To get a product on the shelf, you've got to do the entire process. You've got to toile it, you've got to sample it, you've got to make fitting amendments, you've got to do a tech pack, you do so many rounds of samples before you do a bulk order run. So when you're sat there at your home machine making one garment for the first time and you feel deflated because it hasn't turned out like a off-the-shelf ready-to-wear item, you have to bear in mind that even though you might be using a commercial pattern, you should still be having steps in your creative process to get it to be the standard for your unique figure. And I think that can play on our minds as sewists as well. I think people forget all of that goes into it.
Yeah, I think that sometimes as well, I think especially with social media side of it, where people mostly just share their finished things.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes less about enjoying the process, and you're I've got to finish another thing this weekend so I can have something to post about. Whereas really it's it's really good to share about all the things that went wrong, or the things that you haven't quite sorted it out yet, because that's actually more relatable, because that's the process that everyone's actually doing at the moment.
Yeah, and I feel like we don't give ourselves. I'm a stickler I don't even know if that's a word, for journaling. Like, I love reflecting, I love analyzing. Like, I refer to myself as, for someone who's so creative, I'm also super analytical. I'm like Monica Geller. I have like color coded everything. I love a spreadsheet. If anyone ever wants to geek out over a spreadsheet with me, hit me up. But I journal, and I don't think we give ourselves the time between projects to like analyze our learnings, why it was successful. And I always say there's a lot of power to be had in analyzing why you don't like something just as much as like why you do. I think we look at things on social media, and again, like, God, we could go into so much here. You've got me off on one now, Yvette. But you see people on socials with the same bust, waist, and hip measurement as you. And then you're like, well, that looks great on them. And then you sew it up and you're like, why doesn't that look good on me? But they might not have the same length, waist proportions. They might be like short-waisted. You might be long-waisted. There's just so many nuances to it. And so there's so much power in like analyzing why something hasn't worked just as much as why it has. And I think we finish a project and we're on to the next one. And it's almost like giving yourself permission just to breathe, review it. And ultimately, when you start to do that, you're really going to minimize those moments. And don't get me wrong, same as the seam ripper, it will happen. We can't avoid it. But it will minimize those moments where you sew something up, you've spent all weekend on it, and you feel deflated. If you take those extra steps to analyze, to assess, to just breathe, then you'll start to really secure your chance of successful sewing.
Yeah, that's really good tips. I think as well, sometimes, like, if I know if this is true for me anyway, if I make something and the process is really difficult, like I've got to unpick it 3 times, you know, something like really annoying happens, and when I finish it, I'm like, oh, thank God that's done, and I'm over it, and I don't like it, and I don't want to wear it. But if you just like give it some space and then you try it on like 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, this is actually banging. Like, I'm really glad I made this. And you forget that process now. You just need time to get over it sometimes.
Literally, anytime creative block strikes, anytime you're swearing at your sewing machine, like, put it down, walk away. Like, the amount of years, and I'm going to say it tallies up to at least a year of like tears I have cried over clothes. Like, it bamboozles me. Like, is it worth it? No, it's not. Why did you start sewing? Because you loved it. If there's anything that gets you frustrated, like, you know, just protect and nurture the love you have for it rather than feeding into the frustrations. And the frustrations, you can't avoid frustrations, you really can't. But you can definitely do things to like minimize them, you know?
Oh yeah, so Miami fashion stylist says they love listening to you, Alexandra, and they said stepping away is definitely needed sometimes.
Definitely.
And Helen said, I really appreciate it when people share their fails or mistakes. Not only does it show that other people experience that, but it also helps others avoid the same pitfalls. That's very true.
Definitely. And I think, and it's a good reminder for me because I still think that is something I struggle with. I feel like I have imposter syndrome. I feel like as a small business owner, you have to be visible. I feel like, you know, in layman's terms, ultimately what pays my bills and puts food on the table, part of that is teaching people tutorials. And God forbid I you know, mess up or do anything like that. But I'm very relaxed. I'm starting to relax with it now. I mean, like, I'll post a tutorial and I'll say add 1.5 centimeter seam allowance when really you could add 1 centimeter. And that's kind of perfectionism things, right? Berate I'm like, how have I said that? Oh my God, it's not going to change anything. It's just not, you know, we constantly have these little hiccups or oversights. And when, I mean, I teach the entire process. So I teach fashion design, pattern drafting, and construction. You think how vast that is and how we're constantly learning. Of course, mistakes are going to happen. I mean, Coco Chanel probably made mistakes right up to the end, you know, like it's just part and parcel of being creative. You have to embrace failure, for sure.
Right. Shall we pivot a bit and talk about your stash?
Yes. I feel like this is where it all unravels, no pun intended. Do you want to see my stash? This is going to be very sad. Can you see that tiny little box there?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much it. And there's a reason behind that. So many moons ago, I had we're wobbling a bit, aren't we? I had a custom built studio next to a cowshed. Again, dating a farmer. That's the connection there. It wasn't just a random midlife crisis. And I had a massive shelf of fabrics. And this custom built studio next to a cowshed used to get damp. And I had a lot of expensive fabrics. And they slowly started to deteriorate a little bit. And I thought, you know what? I'm going on a fabric buying ban, and I'm going to limit myself to one shelf. And if I use something from the shelf, I can replace the gap, but I cannot overflow on said shelf. So I don't know how it happened, but it's just regressed and the shelf has gotten smaller over the years. I find it a more sustainable way of sewing. I will say that little hole there, I have two around the side that have toiling fabrics in, I'll say. So I've got a knitwear one to the left and I've got leathers to the right. The rest of my stash in my studio are bolts. So they're very industrial, you know, it's for me sampling patterns. But yeah, in terms of personal fabric and like little fuzzy feelings, I'm going to sew something up for me. Tiny little box.
Nice. When originally you were like, oh, like when you hesitated, I was like, oh, is it going to be a massive stash? And I was like, oh no.
And do you know what? That would be my dream. You know, like Beauty and the Beast in the library. Like, I want the library, number one, but then I also want to duplicate that room and have it full of fabrics. Like, do not get me wrong. I'm just like anyone else out there. Love a fabric shop. But yeah, I've just gotten into the habit of being like, do you know, it's a consumerism thing as well. You know, I'm the same. My wardrobe fits on one rail. So like, I think given this is my career, so like, I feel like I'm making excuses. Don't judge me. This is my career. I feel like my creative energy is spent on my members. It's spent on my clients. It's spent, you know, up to 7 days a week sometimes. So when it comes to me, I'm still on that process of like giving myself a bit of that creative slice. But as I say, I've recently done my colours. That's been a journey for me over the last 2 years. I do have a pile of fabrics here. For destashing, you will notice how dark they are. So anything, yeah, literally. I mean, that's latex and rubber. I don't know what the hell I was thinking I was going to wear with that. Some kinky phase of my life, obviously. No, that was from my graduate collection. But that little cubby corner there is full of light colours. I'm exploring colour more in my wardrobe, you know. So it's facing me, it's facing outwards into my studio, because I think it's really important for you to see your fabrics, you know, see and inspire yourself. You want to touch them, you want to get involved. So yeah, don't judge me, guys. It's very minimalist.
We're a judgment-free zone here. We accept stuff from every size, so that's really awesome. So how do you like to shop? Because it sounds like where you live is quite far away from everything.
It is. Surprisingly, we do have quite a few fabric shops around though, although they are dropping like flies. But we've had a little chat before this, and you mentioned online, bulk orders in fabric, and I just went yes, as in like all of them, just yes. So for my clients, it's very much contacting wholesalers. I have to, you know, have a good understanding of composition and weights and all of that. For myself, I'll get bolts of fabric. I've actually got a massive bolt of neoprene, and I've pretty much used 1/2 meter, and it's just been sat in my studio for years. Or this, instead of bolts, this was about 4 meters of nice heavy Italian wool. That I finally cut the other month and turned into a coat.
Amazing.
So that was something that was just sat existing in my stash. And once I decided I wasn't going to wear black, I was like, well, I can't possibly cut anything out of black now. But I pushed myself to do it. A wearable toile. So yeah, the answer of that, honestly, is all of them. Everything. just give me the fabrics. What about you? What's your favourite?
Fabric shopping? Yes.
Yes.
I tend to mostly shop online, partly because there's not a lot of fabric shops in person that are near me, and also because when I first learned to sew in like 2020, it was like the pandemic time, so you couldn't go and do anything in person anyway. So then that's when I sort of got into buying stuff online. And I think I quite like buying stuff online because you have all the information there. And
Yes.
when you go to shop in person, like I'm sure you've been to like Goldhawk Road and places like that to get fabrics, and it's just, there's just so much, and like it's so overwhelming,
Overstimulating.
yeah, you don't know like the content of anything. Like some of the places, they don't have the prices of anything, and you're just like, oh gosh, like where do I start? So I think, yeah, for me, I definitely like shopping online. I just find it a lot of a, like, you know, you've got more time to like think about it. There's like nobody there like, I'll do you a deal if you buy it right now. And you're just like,
True. That's a very good point. They must see me walk in and think schmuck, because I will, you can sell me anything in a fabric shop. Have you ever found it then? Because this has only happened to me once, and I'm actually quite proud of that, although I don't know what part I had to play. Colour. Because online fabric shopping, when LCD screens reflect colours differently, you have to really trust the fabric shop to be taking accurate photos. And even then, your LCD screen could reflect them differently. So how many times, if any, do you feel like you've had the colour turn up unexpectedly?
Not a lot, honestly. Like this fabric that I've got for these trousers was a less, like, it was just a slightly different shade of red from what I thought it was going to be, but I actually like this more than what I thought the original color was going to be. It suits me better. So yeah, I don't know. I don't buy a lot of plain fabrics, I have to be honest.
Okay.
I buy a lot of prints, and I feel like the color accuracy is maybe like slightly less pivotal in a print because you've got all of that going on.
Yeah.
The print is nice, and you already know that you like the print because you've seen a picture of it. But yeah, I think if you're getting plains, and especially if you're trying to get colors to like match, like I'll try and buy like a, you know, like jersey, I'll try and buy like a matching ribbing at the same time rather than trying to buy it. I actually have I've got this like lace fabric, and I'm trying to buy some bias binding for it to do the seams, and it's not like white this lace.
Awkward color to color match.
Like I just took it to like, I've got a Hobbycraft that's down the road, so I don't really buy fabric there, but it's good for like matching threads and notions and stuff. So but the white bias binding is like too white on this lace, but then the cream is like really yellow, so you're like, oh, you know. So then I ordered this ivory bias binding, and that was still too cream. So now I've reordered some soft white. We'll see what color that is. But yeah, I think it's only mostly an issue when you're trying to get something that like properly matches. Yeah, that's when I find it is hardest.
Try and tea stain it. Try and take it into your own hands. It's so tough, isn't it? It is. I remember one of the first things I was trying to impart wisdom on for people was trying to educate them, and especially with my clients. So this is very much an industry thing. I'll have a client come to me and be like, I want it to be black. And I'm like, I think you're going to be surprised at how many different blacks there are out there. Like there are different blacks. And they're like, what do you mean? I just want black. I'm like, no, like there's so many little differences with it all. But yeah.
It's like whether it's on a sort of like really dark indigo type black or a really dark brown type of a black. And
even the textile makes the black show up different, you know, like you can't color match everything for sure.
What a minefield. Do let us know in the chat if you've got any questions for Alexandra, and then do you want to start showing us some stuff? What have you got to show us?
So I literally I've got in one of these cubbyholes, I've got a box, and it's full of scrap fabrics, and I was like, I really want to show them a textile that I've designed, and that's all I've got left of it, and I've appliqued on top of it, and I'm like, this is pathetic. But if you go to my Instagram, you'll be able to see this textile in a fully fledged design. It was a very bohemian creative brief. And if I zoom in, there's a little fish on top of it. But this is obviously very zoomed in and cropped. I did 2 designs, and they were inspired by an iris. So I did a brown one and a blue one. And then we implemented it into a really bohemian ruffle wrap dress. And it's just one of my client projects that I'm the most proud of, because I feel like I work a lot with startups, and so what we tend to do is use existing stock fabrics. Otherwise, it's a very costly process. So, you know, you go with the tech pack and you say, I want this, but they come back and say, well, we've only got this cherry red rather than maroon red, and you kind of have to decide what route you want to go down. Whereas this one was just really fun because I just had the whole process, custom fabric, custom design, custom pattern. So yeah, head on over to my Instagram at Digital Pattern Library because I've recently posted the final design on that. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that pathetic little
I'll find the post and I'll put a link to it in the description. So when this video's people are watching it back on YouTube, I'll put a link in so they can see that.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just nice to design your own. Anyone can design their own fabric as well. Like I'm saying, this is for industry and client. Like guys, get on Spoonflower, do a repeat print, do a placement print, which doesn't have to repeat. You could just put something somewhere on your body. Have you ever seen the ones where people haven't considered print placement?
When you've made something and it's bit of a dodgy placement going on there. So top tip, if you are going to do anything with print, drape it on a stand first, just see where you're kind of going to lay that down. So yeah, there was that. I was going to show you, although I've just touched upon it, because you asked me what I was scared to cut into, and I really just want to reassure people, like, never be scared to cut into anything. So obviously I stalled on this because of it is 4 meters of very expensive Italian wool. And then I thought, screw it, it needs to be used and put in the world, and made my coat. But I did just want to say, to really drive that point home, this isn't a textile, this is a garment. And it used to belong, it's going to be quite difficult to see because it's dark, but oh my God, it's leather and it feels so buttery. My mum had it custom made for her on a holiday, and it's got her little initials in it. Wow.
And unfortunately, my mum passed away when I was 19. As I said, she had MS. But I was given this, and my dad had a jacket. The collar was also leather, and it was kind of flaking away, and it was old and aging. And if I couldn't even think of anything that is more sentimental than this. So I cut into it. So I took scissors, I cut into it, and I repaired my dad's collar. And I thought it was quite nice because obviously the sentimentality of it. But I just want to drive home the point that, guys, these are clothes. And I think, like, obviously being able to do that for my dad, it was a nice kind of nod to his late wife. But otherwise, they really will just sit around. And I'm not saying go and cut up your dead relatives' clothes. That's not what I'm saying here. But I just want to overcome the perfectionism. And if you can give it a new lease of life, like, there is nothing in my stash I would be scared to cut into. You're going to see people, I don't know if anyone's ever watched fashion documentaries or whatever, seconds before the runway, they're hacking at the hems. There's no perfectionism, you know, like, it's the childlike curiosity with fashion. That's what I love about it. And it's fine. I've still got a lot of fabric here left. And one of my old jackets actually has started to go and needs a repair. So I don't think in my textile stash, it's stereotypical textiles. Like, I deconstruct clothes, I reconstruct clothes, anything that has yardage, if that's yardage, I'm not American, meterage, if that's bed sheets, if that's curtains, like whatever it is. I also don't think you have to pigeonhole yourself into the dressmaking fabric section of an online shop. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into that in a store. Like, and that is the beauty of shopping in store, isn't it? Like the tangibility.
Yeah, to feel the fabric.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that I could have been worried to cut into. Don't get me wrong, I won't hastily cut into it and make like a dog collar or anything. Like, I will proceed with thought. But I would love to know in the comments what other people are scared of cutting into, and why. Why? Is it color? Is it like, is it a sequin fabric that like splinters and flies everywhere when you cut into it? Like, why'd you buy it and why aren't you using it? I'd love to know.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know in the comments, because I feel like Alexandra's got the energy to motivate you to sew this fabric. Like, you're going to be cutting it out in like 10 minutes when we finish this call. You'll be there with your scissors out. So if you need motivation, now's your chance, and we'll we'll put in a good case for you to get sewing up that fabric.
I am
Yeah,
high energy. You'll be buzzing after this call. Well, I am very high energy, but yeah, like you say, we're all passionate about it, aren't we?
yeah, exactly. And I think as well, like you can, like, you know, having a stash is great, and like loving your fabrics is great, but to have them as something functional is like so much more. Like to, you know, to be able to wear it and then other people can see it and appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. And I think like I've recently sewn up a couple of fabrics I've had for a long time, and it's just really nice. Like, so I made these sort of wide leg culotte trousers in this fabric that I've had for over 3 years. I think my Stash Hub said it was like 1,190 days or something, and I was like, and it took me literally like 5 days to complete, you know, do this project from start to finish. And I'm really pleased with them, and now I'm just like, why did I just wait so long to do that? But
it's like a snag list, you know, like when you move into a house and you've got the old snag list. Like fabric stashes can absolutely be a snag list. And trust me, the Monica Geller in me with Stash Hub is in statistic heaven. It's literally just like, it's like scratching an itch. When you finally sew it up, you're like, why did I wait so long? Like, why have I not grabbed for that? And you know what? I've got leathers, which I've inherited. So a lot of what happens with me, and people are going to, this is number one, very first world problem. Number two, people are going to be rolling their eyes saying, how is that a problem? You're a lucky bee. People give me fabric all the time. I remember making a collection that was upcycled from shirts. Actually, that's where the crease backpack. So I have a little backpack accessory that can be reworked from a shirt. So the handles are the button stands, the carry handles, the collar. We keep the patch pocket on it. So that's a sewing pattern. And that's where it came from. I made a collection in my streetwear brand called Crease, and that means shirt in Welsh. Also sounds like crease in fabric. Oh God, I really love that name. Just really geeking out over that. Thought I was a genius. Oh my God. Do you know what? I still, to this day, I think that was back in 2016, I still get friends and family like, do you need any shirts, Al? And I'm like, keep it away from me. I've got a big pile here, and this is very subjective, guys. This really is. And if my stepmother is watching this, God, Irene, I'm so sorry, but she gave me this, and I think it's one of the most hideous things I own. What am I even going to make out of that? So I get fabric given to me all the time. And again, I'm sure like a lot of sewists do, you know, when someone catches wind that you sew. But I do love the challenge of, if I find something particularly ugly, as a designer, I love the challenge of turning it into something not ugly. So maybe I should rise to the challenge on that, but that's also in my D-stash pile. If anybody loves turquoise flamingos, hit me up.
Amazing. I feel like that could be a really good challenge, couldn't it? Like not sew the precious, just sew the hideous.
Yeah,
something horrible. Really fun.
We've just done a complete 180. I'm like, embrace the precious. No, like nurture the precious, sow the hideous is the way forward.
Sew everything. Let's see what everyone else is putting off sewing. So Miami fashion stylist says sequins for sure. Yeah, definitely. I've got like a beaded fabric. It's like a mesh with beads on. And yeah, I'm just like, what do I need to like hammer all the beads for the seams, or like unpick all the beads for the seams? I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for this. I'll leave it on the shelf.
It's the labor intensity of it, isn't it? I've got a nice shirt in fabric. I'll nip and get it because it's only over there. But I've got a lovely shirt in fabric that's got pearls on it. Here we go.
Oh yeah, I feel like I've seen this fabric. I feel like I've seen things holding this.
I think I got it in the remnant section on some online shop. My Fabrics, maybe, which ships from Germany, and so in terms of carbon footprint, that kind of put a pin in that relationship for me. But
they're .uk, aren't they? So you always think, oh, it's UK shop, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to ship this in like 3 weeks, and you're like, oh.
And I found out and I was like, damn, I'm meant to be sustainable, but I will use it. But this is good because of look at the spacing between the pearls.
Yeah, you can
But,
easily just cut off the ones in the seam.
yeah, just like strategically place your seam lines. But what I'm going to make out of that, so I think my issue, I'm having an epiphany live right now. I think my issue is I love, as we all do, pretty fabric, but my lifestyle is stables, farmyards, and Welsh countryside. So like that's gorgeous, but that is definitely going to turn into something for someone else, for friends or family, because like practically I just don't wear it, which might lean towards why my stash is so small. But yeah, I mean every day's a school day, you know. But I can't, it's magpie syndrome, isn't it? You can't help yourself.
I feel like that pearl fabric, it's got to be like a blouse or a shirt, hasn't it?
Yeah,
like you
gotta
couldn't
be
do a
something.
dress because you'd be sitting on all those pearls and it'd be too annoying.
Yeah, it'd be like Princess and the Pea.
Yeah, you just have a bruised bum all the time. You can't. You can only suffer for fashion to an extent.
I choose to never suffer for fashion. I will pick comfort every single time.
Yeah. What does Helen say? I put off cutting a fabric that I really love, not always expensive, but something I really want to love in a garment, or those needing pattern matching.
Yeah, pattern matching's a biggie, isn't it? But I mean, the more intricate the pattern, the more you can get away with, for sure.
Yeah, I made this dress for my mum, and I feel like when you make something for somebody else, or I always put like more effort in because I feel like I know what level of imperfections I can deal with, but then for someone else, I've got to actually make this perfect. And I managed to pattern match the pattern like over the invisible zip. And this I made like quite early on as well, and I was just so proud of myself. And this also links back to our early conversation about dodgy pattern placement, because the fabric had blue tits on it, because my mum really likes birds, and I was just like, I cannot put blue tits on the chest. I'm not giving blue tits to my mum. So I've spent so long on this dress, like figuring out the placement.
I 100% would have embraced that. I would have gone very kitsch and run with it.
Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, here you go, mum. Here's a tit dress for you. She'd have been like, what?
The thing is, as a mum, it's like putting a picture on the fridge, isn't it? She would have had to wear it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like if it was a friend, it might have been funny, but I was like, I can't humiliate my mum with not thinking about this placement.
Oh, bless her. And does she wear it without the tits where they're not meant to be? Does she still wear it now?
Oh, I didn't. The tits thing didn't happen because I did spend a long time thinking about it. But yeah, she has worn it, so yeah, I'm very pleased. But the thing is, I recently made her a dress, and because we did the runway together, the catwalk at the Stitch Festival.
Oh, cute! I love that.
But now she wears that dress all the time, and she's going around telling everyone that I made it. And I'm like, just tell everyone I will not be making them a dress, okay?
So sweet. Yeah, the alterations that come in. My assistant in my marketing manager job was like, I'm going out this weekend. Can you just stitch this up for me? I'm like, yeah, no problem. They come flooding in, don't they, once people catch wind?
Yeah. And then it's like, how do I say no to this?
Literally.
Like, sometimes, if it's someone that you really like and you really know and you feel like it's not going to be that bad, you're like, fine, let's do it. But like, I had this situation where I just bought a new sewing machine and my husband is carrying it in its massive box down the street to our house. And this lady just like stops us in the street. I've never met her in my life. And she's like, oh, do you sew? Like, I'm like looking at the sewing machine in the box, like, yeah. Just bought a new sewing machine. She's like, oh, will you sew me a dress? And I'm like, no, I just sew for fun. I don't really do that. She's like, oh, I'll pay you money. I'm like, I don't want money. Just leave me be. It was so awkward. I was like,
what? She was so desperate for. What event was she going to? That sounded urgent.
No, she was just like really insistent. Like, I don't know. She made it out like I was being rude because I didn't want to sew out this with a random person. And meanwhile, my husband's arms are falling off in the street, just like carrying this huge box.
Oh gosh. I think one of the biggest near misses I've ever had is my friend's wife or fiance at the time was like, would you make my wedding dress? And I said yes.
Oh.
Um, can I just reiterate, streetwear designer? Have you seen what's going on in this studio? Why did I say wedding dress? Twirled it up, sewed it up. She came for a fitting. I think my mother was looking down on me because she messaged me after and she was like, I think I'm going to wear a jumpsuit. We've gone quite casual now. And I was like, oh, that's totally fine. I'm like, you do you. Please wear the jumpsuit. Such a stupid agreement. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I feel like like making a dress is like one thing, but then if somebody else has a very specific idea of like what they want, and especially if they don't know how to sew, and you're just like, oh no, like to get it to fit nicely, and it's going to take so many twirls. It's just like you can't just send me your measurements.
Well, I don't know where I don't know where the attitude came from, because believe you me, I'm not a people pleaser. I'm very good at being like, no. But I was like, I'll give it to you as a wedding present. Like, I must have had some kind of fever dream. So I was like, yeah, you don't have to pay me. Let's do a custom look. This will be a fun project. Oh my God, I was so relieved. So relieved when they went down a different route, because I just thought, you numpty.
They could just see the whites of your eyes during the fitting, and they were like, you know what? Actually, don't worry about it.
Just trying to drop really subtle hints, but no. You grow from these things, don't you? You push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you grow from it, so it's fine.
So Kerry says they bought some fabric online, but when it arrived, they realized it was actually upholstery fabric. Is there any garment that that they could make out of it?
Outerwear, jackets, canvas. Oh, guys, I need your help. Canvas tote. That is on my project list this year. Accessories. There's so much you could make out of it. You don't have to, again, we need to get out of this like final garment thinking. Like, put it as a panel in something. Use it, like cut it up and put it into loads of different projects. Like, make a collection. Hello, that's exciting. So yeah, loads of stuff. But outerwear would be my go. You need something hard wearing, depending what it is. I mean, even upholstery fabric could range from leathers to canvases, but you could do a pair of jeans if it's like a thick canvas. Like, that could be quite cool. The world's your oyster, guys. When you become a fashion designer, and like I think one of the biggest battles I personally have in my marketing is convincing people they can design their own clothes. So I think a lot of people out there rely on pattern companies. I might be shooting myself in the foot here, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Don't rely on me to release sewing patterns that align to your style, because I'm going to be designing stuff that align to my style. So like, start designing your own clothes. Like, who better to do that than you? You're the one wearing them. You know what you like. Anyone can design their own clothes. So yeah, like, the world's your playground. Use the upholstery fabric in jeans, in an accessory, in a jacket. Make a bloody avant-garde matching three-piece. Anything. Yeah, just
as well, like, even if you decide that it's too thick or like too structured for any garment that you would want to make, it would be perfect to make like a poof if you need somewhere to stuff all your scraps.
Yeah. How many of us have poofs? Oh,
my top tip is to make a poof and then give it to your friends as like a housewarming gift or something, because that's like a win-win, because you've got a gift that was free for you to make, and also you get rid of loads of scraps from your house.
Literally. I feel like the poof has been quite an iconic symbol in the sewing community.
The fashion world's just setting it all on fire, and we're here just shoving it into a little poof.
A mannequin arm. Make a mannequin, make something useful with it. I mean, this is calico, but this would definitely work in upholstery fabric. I've got a free pattern for this, actually, and this is stuffed full of fabric scraps. So like, this is what being creative is. You just come up with, I'm just going to throw that down there. Nobody needs to see the chaotic space around me. So yeah, make a poof, make a mannequin arm. We don't even have to make it fashion related. Just, we have the transferable skills to just make. Like, that's exciting. I was bought, no, I wasn't. They were given to me by my partner's mum. The best, it's literally my personality to a T, books. She had a set of 3, and it was about making horse clothes. So like the saddle pad and like the rug, like that's the kind of stuff I would love to make. So yeah, you can make anything for sure.
I bet your mother-in-law was like, just saw these books and was like, oh my gosh, jackpot, farm animals and sewing.
Literally. She was like, this girl's going to save me a fortune.
Just like, how many books in the series? 3. Excellent.
There you go. Every year at the Christmas dinner table, she's like, how's it? You on chapter 3 yet, Al?
Every time she comes, the horse has got a new thing. She's like, oh, a hat for the horse now. Oh, you must be on to book 2.
Like a horse backpack. I'm just inventing all sorts now, you know.
And just imagine just you like going past a field, you're just like, what's that horse wearing a backpack?
Literally looks like Buckaroo when you go around. It's just piled high of all my creations.
The horse is just there like, what did I do to deserve this? I'd rather have the farrier, please.
Oh gosh, oh yeah. Well, what should I make next? What should I make him suffer with next? But, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Right, okay. I think we're over time now because we're just having too much fun. But have you got anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I mean, literally wear what you want, make what you want, have fun with it. If it feels like it's stressing you out, if you've lost your sojo, try and break the pattern, do something different. I have a free 5-day email challenge if anybody is interested, called Make Time in May. And it's a watered down version of what my members get, basically. So each week I give my members a creative quick win, because in the premium tier, we have our create, cut, construct framework cycle. And over 3 months, we design, draft and make a particular garment style. Exhibit A, this is from a jumper framework we did. But creative quick wins are designed to take that pressure off your shoulders. You know, we can't always make garments, design, draft and all that. And life gets in the way, and people have families, and people have horses they want to play dress up with, and the sun is shining. That's enough of a reason for me not to want to stand by an iron and sweat. So 5 days with quick email prompts. You can achieve something and keep the creative momentum going in a matter of seconds. It's a free experience, and it's just a really good way to shift your perspective and approach sewing from a different angle. So it's really good to overcome creative block, because trust me, when you've been in the industry for over 10 years, you are constantly trying to reinvent how to stay interested.
Yeah. And even when people feel that in their hobby as well, you just need to like get out of that, just start having some fun.
Yeah. Like it's okay for you to ebb and flow with your hobby. Like I want to say that as well. Like it's the age of social media. And you know, as small businesses of that, we're bound to get this. Like it's the comparison trap, it's the lack of inspiration. It's really hard just to keep that going. And this is for a whole other talk, but even as women, you know, we've got the dreaded cycle that affects us too. So it's just a case of nurturing your creativity. If you don't want to sew, don't sew. Don't force yourself to do it. But if you do want to sew, you just don't know how to get back into it, then yeah, Make Time in May. It's a really good, you know, beginner friendly, all of that. So yeah, and I've got loads of other stuff over at Digital Pattern Library. We've already gone over time. So
Make Time in May in there as well. So I think there should already be a link to your website and your Instagram. And I'll put a link to your custom design fabric as well, because that sounds really exciting.
So much going on.
And Kerry, I'll also put in a link to the virtual sewing room, because I think they're doing a sew along for the closet core poof. So if you did want to make that and have some company whilst you do it, I'll put that link in as well.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm clicking that link.
Yeah,
I want to make a poof.
Everyone needs a poof.
Everyone needs a poof.
But yeah, thanks so much, Alexandra. That was really fun chat, and it was really interesting to hear about your sewing journey as well.
Oh, honestly, thanks for having me. Literally way past my bedtime, I will say, but totally worth it.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have to get up too early to do farmyard things.
Oh, I got an excuse to have a lie-in now, winning.
Nice. So, oh yes, I was working late.
Working, yeah, it was like you were laughing all night. No, it was work. It was work.
I did hear you say horse buckaroo at one point. It was very serious work. Very serious.
Very serious.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, Alexandra. Thanks everyone who watched live and joined in the chat. And if you missed any of it, this is all going to go straight onto YouTube afterwards. So do drop us a comment on YouTube as well, and check out all the links in the description. And I won't be back next week because I've got a week off, but I'll be back the week after. So I'll see you then. Bye.